Hey everyone. Today we're going to connect up Auth0 with FlutterFlow and just build a simple login sign up page, kind of some out of the box templates that FlutterFlow has, and then show how we can hook it up to an API, keep our users signed in, and make sure that they have the relevant roles and permissions to be able to perform tasks within our application. So as a very simple demo, we're going to go to a sign up page, and I'll just make a dummy email. We'll go ahead and create this account. And we'll land here and we'll be able to see test boats. So we can create a new boat. Obviously this create boat form looks pretty trashy. The objective of this is really not the UI element. It's more so connecting the backend so that our authentication works with Auth0. So maybe we call this demo boat and we list it for sale. Maybe it's 20 feet long and it's $150.99. So we'll go ahead and create that, and we'll see our new demo boat there. Other than that, we just have a simple theme switcher and a sign out button. So very basic, but we'll talk about the API that I set up, and I'll make it all available to you guys so that you can pull it down and test it and connect it to your own Firebase. So we'll go ahead and create a new project, and we'll just call this the Auth0 demo. And we're not going to do anything fancy with the color scheme, so I'm just going to toggle this on for now. Yeah, we can do Firebase right now. I do not want authentication, and we'll go ahead and select an initial page. So here's where we can find our login page or our getting started page. I want to find this one, but for the login here, give me a second. Maybe we can search for it, or maybe it's just under auth. So we have the welcome back, and let's just go ahead and use my theme. We'll call this the login page. So we'll go ahead and create this guy, and let's go ahead and create a project as well. And we'll just choose the default and go ahead and authorize FlutterFlow to access our Firebase console, so it can go ahead and create that project for us in the back end. It'll also set up a service account so that it can perform actions on your behalf, so that some of the things that we're doing in the platform, we don't actually have to toggle over to Firebase to actually do them. So this is going to be really helpful for things like deploying cloud functions, setting up different collections. So we'll be able to see how to do that here. And we'll just give this a minute to set up, and I'm going to pause and then I'll resume it once it's ready. Okay, now that we have Firebase configured, we're going to go ahead and auto-generate these config files. This should be a little bit more forgiving than the other load. I'll give this a second. Awesome, and then just making sure that we have our initial page set to the login page, and we'll go ahead and hit start building. So we have our page here, and if we come up to our Explorer, we're going to go ahead and just create another page, and we'll just call this home page. And this could really be anything. We'll just create something blank. I think that's easier. And we'll leave this as is. And we're going to come down to the settings, and we're going to do some things to set up our authentication. So we'll go to the app settings, we'll enable authentication, and then we're going to go ahead and choose custom as a type. And so our entry page is going to be that login page, and then we're logged in, we want to go to the home page. A couple of different options here. So we can persist the auth sessions, or we could choose to essentially code it out ourselves. I'm going to leave this toggled on. And we'll come up here and start making some changes to our app. So within the, I'm going to put the login page in here as well. Within here, we're going to need to do some things first to set up Auth0. And the first piece is going to be defining some API calls. So I'm going to go ahead and create an API group, and we'll just call this auth. And we're going to need a base URL. So when we come over to our Auth0 tenant, this is going to be your domain here, essentially. But more specifically, we can go to the documentation and the authentication API, pop that guy open, and we'll have a list of authentication API related information. And really what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at the get token, and we're going to be using the resource owner password grant. Now, this is not recommended. It's the embedded flow. Auth0 is always going to go with the highest security first. So if we were using Auth0's SDK, then behind the scenes, what it's actually doing is performing the authorization code flow with PKCE. Now, this is very helpful in reducing cross-site scripting attacks and man-in-the-middle attacks to try and intercept that information, because we are passing a username and password over the network. Now, we think about Firebase and Supabase. These are embedded flows. They are sending that information over, and your application is handling them. With authorization code flow with PKCE and the Auth0 SDKs, you're actually being redirected to the authentication server to provide your credentials, so your application is not handling any of that. And I have a simple starter app from Auth0 here, and what that would look like not doing an embedded flow would be I click login, it redirects me out to my authorization server, my login page, and I can provide my credentials there and then sign in. And then it redirects me back to my application. There is a limitation right now, at least that I see. I can't find a way to do it with FlutterFlow. Getting a redirect URI back to the application when we're using test mode. So I haven't tried to pull it down the code itself and do like a custom implementation, because I want to do everything within FlutterFlow and try and keep it low code as possible. So we're going to use the resource owner password flow here. And this is what that flow is going to look like, the information that we're going to need to pass over to sign a user in. So we'll go ahead and do this. And our base URL, is going to be our tenant domain. So we'll come here, and it's just going to be HTTPS. In my case, it's going to be OSU CS493. It's an old tenant that I was using before. KLVM .us.auth0.com. And when we're looking at this, it's going to be your tenant name. So HTTPS tenant name or subdomain .us.auth0.com. If you spun it up in a different region, then it won't be US. So we're all set up here, and we can choose to add headers that we want to include on all of the requests that fall into this API group. We're just going to leave this alone for now. And then any group variables, things that I want to pass along to all of my requests. So I can say perfect. Let's go ahead and add the group, and we'll start adding our first API call, and we'll make this first one the login. And when I come back to the authentication API, that's going to be our OAuth/token endpoint. Okay, and for the headers, I'm going to move this guy over here. We can see here that we need the content type, application, XWW form encoded URL. So let's go ahead and add this header. We'll get rid of these apostrophes. And we'll go ahead and move on to the query parameters. So the things that we're going to need to pass over to this call that are required. So the grant type, we're going to need that. It's just going to be password, client ID. This is going to be the application ID that you set up within Auth0, and we'll go over that in just a second. Let's go ahead and put some of these in. So we got grant type. And that's going to be a specific value. That's just going to be password. So we're going to need a client ID. And we're going to leave this as a specific value too for right now. We'll show how we can make this a little bit more secure. We can do making our API calls private and using cloud functions to help obscure some of this information, like hard coding client IDs into here. Although it's really just the client secret that we're worried about exposing. So where we're going to get this client ID is actually going to be under our applications. So as you come in here and you create a new application, I'm going to use one that I already have existing, but you're going to create a native application. And then once that's spun up, I've named mine FlutterFlow Boats. You're going to have a client ID up here. So go ahead and copy that. We're going to paste that into here. We'll add next query parameter. In this case, it's a username and a password. So we'll say username. And this is going to be from a variable, right? Our application needs to pass that. And we'll go ahead and create a new variable. It'll automatically draw one up here in this variables section. Same thing with password. And we'll do that from a variable. And we'll create a new one. And if we go over to variables now, we're going to set the types. They're both just going to be string. They're not a list. And we'll not worry about the default value. So where we could route them through a cloud function, we'll do it here, but I want to do that at the end once we have all of our API calls set up. So now that we have this information in, I can go ahead and test these things, right? So I have this information. I already have a user set up within Auth0, and we can just use this bob3.test@atco.email. I just created him like 20 minutes ago. And we'll go ahead and set the password, which just set as this for right now. And we can go ahead and test that out. So I'm getting a 404. Let's figure out what's going on. Query parameters. Add call. Let's make sure that this header is correct. Let's just capitalize these two. Okay. I left out a very crucial piece of information. We need to make this a post request. And we're going to need to set these again really quickly. So this is going to be that form encoded, and we're going to have that same information that we had before, the grant type, the client ID, username, password, etc. And then we'll go to the response type, and we'll go ahead and test this out. And what we're going to get back is an ID token, an access token, scope, expires in, and a token type. So we can use this information. We can also pass, because what we want is we actually want the ability to have refresh tokens as well. We want to pass the offline access scope in order to get those refresh tokens back, because we're going to need that to stay logged into our platform or our application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to designate an audience, okay? And I'm going to go over this within Auth0 as well, but I've called mine boats. And we're gonna do things in reverse order here, but I'm gonna jump to it, and we're gonna define a scope. And this is still gonna be a string, just delimited by spaces. So we're gonna want email, open ID, which gives us the ID token, profile, and offline access, which gives us that refresh token. So we'll go ahead and save that. Now I want to take a pause and go over to Auth0 really quickly. So when we're setting up our application, there are things that we can configure. Don't worry about the callback URLs. I was messing around with this to get the auth code flow with PKCE working. But you can set the ID token expiration. So how long do you want that ID token to last before it expires? And you can toggle on things like refresh token rotation or expiration. Okay, this is a little bit higher security in the sense that every time you make a request to the auth server, you're going to pass the access token, you're going to get a refresh token back along with it, a new one. So that if someone got a hold, or a bad actor got a hold of your old refresh token, when they try and go make a request with that at the authorization server, it's going to say, hey, there was already a request made here with that one. We're not going to issue you a new access token, refresh token, kick you back to the login screen, make you go through that process again. If you're the legitimate user, you can provide your credentials again, and you can boot the other person out. We're going to leave that off. It throws complications into things, and we're going to leave the expiration here off as well. I just want these to be indefinitely lived tokens. And some other things to call out in the actual settings when we're configuring this application is going to the grant types, and we need to make sure that we're enabling that password. And it's going to bark at us and tell us this is stupid because the OAuth2 spec essentially does not preach this. It preaches the auth code flow with PKCE because it is the most secure. However, if you want that embedded flow, we would need to do this password grant type. So what we'll do is we'll come in here and we'll create an API. So you're going to come up here. And we'll just call this test API 2 and give it any identifier you want. This doesn't need to be anything fancy. It could be the name of what you called the API. It really doesn't matter. And then we're going to have a default signing algorithm, and you can choose RS256 or HS256. Once you've created that, I've called mine the boats API. We'll see I have that identifier up there. That's just boats. That's our audience that we're passing in our flow here. And we're going to come into here and we're going to define permissions. So in here, I'm defining a read boats permission and a write boats. And I just entered them like a key value pair. And you can give it any description that you want. So we're going to be accessing my boats API. And if I want to put some authorization on those API endpoints to make sure that, hey, when a user makes this request, they need to be presenting an access token with the permission to read or write boats to be able to access the data or to be able to make that call. Under the settings for the API, this is where we can define the token expiration of the access token. So I think by default, this sits at like 10 hours. Follow your own security guidance and best practices. You can make this a day. You can make it 1 hour. You can make it 10 minutes if you want. It's just how you want to structure your application. You're going to have a refresh token to get a new access token when that expires. So kind of best practice is having shorter lived access tokens and a long lived refresh token if you want to keep your users logged in. Then we're just exchanging those things. That way, if anyone ever gets a hold of the access token, it will expire at some point. Instead of we set it at some ridiculous value like a year, they have access to keep calling the APIs for a year. Further down, I want to enable RBAC settings. So if I enable this and then I add permissions to the access token, every time a user logs in that has a role that's scoped to these permissions, I'm gonna get the permissions on the access token. So if I give someone the ability to read and write boats, this will automatically be appended to their access token in an array, a permissions array. Okay, that's all we need for this piece. Let's go back to our application. You can go ahead and hit this response and test. I'm going to test it again, that I'm providing that, and we'll see that I got that refresh token along with it. Okay, so beauty of FlutterFlow here. I can add these as JSON paths. So instead of defining a data type for them, this is much easier for me to just add these guys in, and I'll just add them all in. It's really can't hurt. We're gonna give them some names. I think this one's camel case. So we'll do this ID token, scope. Probably won't be using scope anywhere. You could use expires in some places, but we probably won't. And because what we're going to do is we're actually going to look at the expiry time on the access or the ID token. That's going to be the way that we want to set this within FlutterFlow. So let's go ahead and save this. And we have our login call. I'm going to come back to settings really quickly. And let's go to that authentication. And I am going to associate this user data type. And right now I don't have one. So let's go ahead and just define one really quickly. And we'll just create a data type, and maybe we just call this the Auth0 user. And here's going to be the fields. So when I get the tokens returned back to my application, primarily that ID token is going to contain information on the user that I might want to track across the rest of my application. And what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to go back to the APIs. You don't have to do this, but just follow along real quick. We're going to go to that response and test. I'm going to test that one more time. I'm going to grab this ID token. And there's a fantastic site called jot.io that I can come and paste this in. Oh, I didn't get the whole thing. So give me a second here. Paste this guy into here, and we'll see that Bob Test logged in. does not have a verified email. So all these pieces of information we can store on our user, as well as if we wanted to track the expiration. This is of the ID token. We're going to be more focused on the access token because that's what they're using to make requests to our backend. So we're going to come back into our data types, and it might make sense if I do a little bit of a split screen here so I'm not jumping back and forth. Okay, so go ahead and add field, and we're going to want email for sure. We're going to want maybe email verified. Maybe we want to check this and send them to an email verification screen if they're not verified. Take a nickname. Not really necessary, but bring it in. Do you like that name field? We'll definitely grab that picture. We'll make that an image path. Then let's see if we want any of these other pieces of information. Oh, the sub. So the sub value, the sub claim right here is our user ID, and that's very important. So we'll go ahead and bring that in as well. Okay. Now, we did make the request, and we can also save onto the user the ID token, the access token, the refresh token. I really don't think we need to do that. We want to conceal that information within the application as much as possible. So let's go back to our API calls now that we have this set up. And let's go ahead and add a second one to sign up. And we're going to need to go back to our authentication API documentation, and we'll go to the sign up. We're going to make a post request to the DB connections sign up. Okay. Did I just screw that up? Yep. Okay. And the information we need off of this is now going to be a JSON body. So really whatever information we want to pass. So on our sign up form, we can collect additional information like username, given name, family name, and add those to the user profile as well. I'm going to just do what's required here because it's simpler. Okay. So we're going to change this up to a post request, and we'll do a content type again. And here we're just going to do application/JSON. Under the body, we're going to go ahead and just do JSON. And we'll start typing these things out. And I'm going to bring this authentication docs over here. So similarly to the login flow, we're going to need, that's the OAuth token endpoint. Let me expand this guy out. Client ID. Okay. And this is just going to be, we'll define these in a variable right now. Client ID. And we're going to pull that from our applications, Flutter boats. What else do we need here? Email, password, and connection. So email. Password. Connection. And this connection is going to be username, password, authentication, unless you created a separate database within Auth0. So if we go to authentication databases, when you spin up an Auth0 tenant, you're going to get a username, password, authentication database out the gate. If you named a different one, go ahead and list that connection. And one last thing that I ran into when I was playing around with this before is make sure to come into settings for using the ROPG flow. And we're going to come down, shoot, maybe it's in the advanced section. Hold on, I know it's here. Yes, you can just find the default directory as the username password authentication. This is for the password grant exchanges, so go ahead and do that as well. All right, so this is going to be a string, and that's a string, and we'll go back to the body, and we can start dragging these things into here. Email, password, connection. Okay, format that. We're looking good. Let's go ahead and add this call. Let's go to the response section. This client ID, I'm going to pull off that application again. Oop, that's not the right one. Let's just paste that into there. If we want to sign up a new user, we can test this all here. So I'm going to go ahead and I think there's actually a better way. Let's see. Let's do Matt5.test echo.email. And then this should be included by default. So let's test this API call. Connection is too short. Okay, that's gonna be because I need to pass it in here. Okay, so we just passed that information in. We got an ID back. There's my email, and my email is not verified. That was the response. So if we want to save these down as a predefined path, we certainly can do that. I will just go ahead and add these guys in case we use it down the road. Perfect. Save that guy. Now we have our login and sign up functions. So let's go ahead and start building this out a little bit. And I'm going to create a new page here. I want to do this from a template. Let's add a page auth, and we'll get this get started one. This will be our sign up page. Okay, so we need to wire a few things up here. So sign up page. Let's go ahead to this create account, and let's fire off these actions. So they're going to have a predefined one here, and we're going to be using the API calls to start this thing off. So let's go ahead and edit this. Just remove this out. So we'll add an action. API call. This is going to be the sign up, and we're going to set some variables. So client ID is already going to be set. Set the we need the email, and we're going to get that from our widget state. That's already provided to us with the template. Really easy. Same thing with password. Same thing. And these other two, we should be good without them. And let's go ahead and call the result of this our sign up results. Let's say API. So if it succeeded, what I want to do is go ahead and add an action. And what that action is going to be is we've signed them up, but I actually need them to log in. So this is actually going to use the other API call. And I'm going to do group auth. This is the login endpoint. And similarly, we're going to take that username, which is going to be the widget state in the email field, and our password. Okay, and we'll call this the login result. Say API. And the information that's returned from that we defined as predefined paths, JSON paths in our API call. So it's going to make this a lot easier. So assuming this succeeded as well, we're going to go ahead and add an action. And this is where we're going to look at the custom authentication actions. So this is where we're actually logging a user in, and we're going to set their tokens. So from the authentication token, I can look at the action outputs, and this is going to be the login result that I want. So here, I'm going to choose JSON body, predefined path, and I'm going to choose that access token. Okay. Refresh token, same thing, action outputs. And actually, to make this easier, let's go ahead and just copy the previous one because it's going to be very similar, except we're going to choose refresh token. Now, token expiry time. This is an interesting conversation, and we're going to actually add a step in to be able to get this information because we need to be able to get inside that token. Right now, it's encoded. It's encrypted with the RS-256, and we can decode that here with Jot.io and pull that information. And we need that expiration time. If we look at this, this is actually showing me that it's going to expire tomorrow. So I guess it might be a 24-hour access token. So you have a couple of options. You could just do some kind of janky set it yourself, but we probably want to make this dynamic based on what we do to configure the token lifetimes in case those ever change in the future. We're also going to need a user ID. So I'm going to be able to get that user ID from, I can get it from the signup result. We got passed back a token, or sorry, we got passed back the ID of the user. But really, if I get inside of the access token or the ID token, that's where I'm going to have more information about the user. So I really want to get inside this ID token right now, be able to pull that sub value and a couple of other things. Okay, so to see what's inside of this ID token, we're going to need to go to pubdev, and we want jot decode. And so this is what we're going to look for here. We're going to have to do one custom function. It's the only custom function we're going to do throughout this entire thing. And this is the package we're looking for, but I want the README of it. Here we go. So I'll go ahead and copy this. I'm going to need this package. We'll come back to our project. Let's close out of here for a second. That information will be saved. And we're going to come down to our custom code. We're going to go ahead and add a custom function. Rather, action. Apologies. Let's cancel that. Oh, it's being a little buggy. Here we go. And what we want to take in as arguments, actually before I get that, let's take that pub value that we got, that package. Okay, we're loading that in. Make sure you hit this button after bringing that package in. And we're going to add one argument, and this is just going to be the token that we're passing in. And that's just going to be a string. That's not nullable. Okay. And our return value is going to be JSON. We're going to return a payload similar to this. Okay. Perfect. Let's see if this boilerplate code, let's cancel that actually. Let's call this decode token as the action name. Okay. So let's go ahead and copy this to the editor. We have it laid out for us right here. Now let's find that import statement that we're going to need. And we can find this under examples. Here it is. Let's get that package name. And let's just add this guy into here. Now, sometimes the custom actions, widgets, and functions like to bark. I'm going to go ahead and hit exclude from compilation right now. And we'll just go ahead and start coding this out. So it's a very, very short function, I promise. But we're going to define a decoded token here. We're not going to do anything with it just yet. And then we're going to make a try catch block. In this try block, we're going to do a decoded token is equal to, and here we can use this information where they have a map string dynamic decoded token, and we'll just do this jot decoder. So we'll just copy and paste this from here. And that comes from this package, so just don't worry about that for right now. If we want, we can print this decoded token, and we're going to want to catch any errors. So maybe we want to return, because we specified the return value as JSON, I'm going to make this an object, and we'll just say error. And you can make this the error that it actually returns so that your users can see that in there, or you could just say something went wrong. And we'll just go with that for right now. And then down here, we've set this equal to that, and we're going to return here if it catches an error, but we need to actually return the decoded token. Perfect. Let's go ahead and save this. I want to come back to this. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. And now we're going to go back to our action from before. So under this create account, before this auth happens, because we're going to want to set user data too, we're going to actually add an action, and I'm going to put this before it. Okay. Now this is going to be our custom actions and decode token. And the value that we're going to pass in is going to be similar. It's going to be from the action outputs. This is the login result. And I want to pass predefined path, and I want to pass that ID token. We can make another one for the access token. You know what? We'll do that as well. We'll copy this action. Let's maybe add another one. And let's, is this the, where's the paste? Paste. Well, it's pretty simple. Just do decode token. And we'll get the action output, the login result, body, predefined path, access token. Let's make sure we're naming these correctly too. So we'll call this access token decoded. And we'll call this ID token decoded. Okay. Now in our auth, we can get an expiry time and a user ID. Let's do the user ID first. So we're going to do this from action outputs, and this is going to be the ID token decoded. And we're going to get a JSON path. And if you remember, off here on the right, we have that sub value. So that dot, the $dot notation sub is going to grab this guy. That's what we need. So go ahead and confirm that. And the token expiry time. So now this is tricky. So we can grab the access token expiration time, and we can set it into here. And if that lasts 24 hours, then when the user comes back the next day, it'll automatically log them out. This is where FlutterFlow is tracking, is the user logged in or not? So I actually want to alter this a little bit, because you can't decode the refresh token and see how long that lasts for. It's indefinite lived. So I can just set this token expiry time kind of way out in the future. And really, if their access token is expired, then they'll need to get a new token. But I want to keep them logged in. So for this token expiry time, I'm going to go to action outputs. We'll go to the access token. I'll get a JSON path. And I believe it's also just going to be called expiration. I should probably test to make sure that's right. Let me confirm this really quickly. Let me go to the API calls again. Let's go to that response and test. take a peek into here. Yep, it is called expiration as well. And that's in Unix format. So we're going to come back to our editor, the login, and I actually want to do, let me do, where's the code expression? See, what does it want for this? It wants a timestamp. So we're going to need to do date time from Unix, because Unix is going to be this value of whatever that is. And then here I'm going to do a code expression, and I'm going to add an argument. Okay, that first argument is going to be, we can just call it expiration. We know what we're doing. And we're going to set that to our action outputs. We're looking at that access token result, and this is the expiration. I'll go ahead and confirm that. Now down here, I think I called it expiration. We're going to define how long we want this guy to last. So right now we can make it last until tomorrow, whatever that 24-hour window is, whatever this says here in the expiration. But I can add a little bit of flair to this if I want. So if we wanted to add something like 5 years, will be dramatic, then we could do 5 times 365 times 24 times 60 times 60. I believe that gets us there. So we'll go ahead and check this for errors really quickly. That's problematic. That's going to be an integer. Make sure that type is an integer. And we'll go ahead and confirm this guy. And the time unit is going to be in seconds. Okay. Perfect. So that's getting a date time from that Unix. We're adding 5 years to it. So the user can stay logged in for 5 years before we boot them out of the application. You can choose in that code expression how long you want to make that. So if you want to leave it as the day that the actual expiration time, then they'll get booted out every single time, or every single day they log into the app. You can configure those access token lifetimes within Auth0 as well, as I mentioned before. So if we came to our boats API, so however you want to configure those, I think the max you can do it is 30 days within Auth0, but then you need to, if you supply a refresh token, you can keep the user logged in. Okay, so confirm that, confirm, and we're going to go ahead and set some user data as well. And this should be set to the Auth0 user. So let me close that, come into my settings really quickly, and that still didn't toggle on. So in our authentication, we want to make sure it's that Auth0 user that we defined. And we'll come back up, go to the auth, and we'll just hit add field. And this is where we can start pulling from the action outputs, our ID token, JSON path, and make it easier. I'm going to, come get that ID token back. Make sure we have all the fields correct. So email, and we'll copy this, just make this a little bit quicker. Just paste them into here. This is going to be email verified. Nickname. Picture is going to be picture. Sub is going to be, sub. And we'll go ahead and confirm that. So let's do a little bit of error validation. In case the sign up doesn't happen, maybe user tries to use an email that's already in use, let's just do some simple validation. I'll show a snack bar, and we will maybe just make this the result. So the sign up result to JSON body. Oh, I got to remember what the path was for the error result. We can probably, let's test that really quickly. Let's go back to the API calls. So we should have already created a mat5. So we get the code, description. It's probably what we want. Yeah, description's fine. So action outputs, sign up result, JSON body. Go ahead and confirm that, and we'll make that like an error color. And let's go ahead and copy that action, and let's do something similar here, except we're going to want to do the login result in case something goes wrong with the login. And yeah, we could just get the raw body text. That might be good. We'll test it out too. Okay. Error. Good. So this create account should be all set. Let's see what errors we have going on right now. Okay, from the template, we had some stuff that was already set up in the actions. We're just going to go ahead and disable those for right now. We probably have the same thing with the sign up. Just disable these actions. And I'm going to disable this one as well for just for right now. We'll be able to do this one much quicker than the sign up because we already have the flow built. We'll boot this guy up. While that's provisioning, let's go to this create account. And really what we want is like here down. So let's copy the action chain. Let's go to the login page under sign in. Let's open this up. And let's just paste these. Okay, we got to reconfigure a few things. So again, the widget state, password from the widget state, and we're going to need the action outputs. So this is the login result. We'll get the ID token there. Similarly here, action outputs, the login result, predefined path. Let's get the access token. Okay, now this is all going to be a mess. Action outputs. Let's confirm that one, and then we'll just do the same thing we did before and copy these around. It's going to be the refresh token. The date time one's always fun, so let's give that a second. The user ID is going to be the ID token decoded, and we're going to pull a JSON path, and this is the sub value of that. And then our date time always fun, always fun, is going to be the action outputs, and we want the access token result, JSON path, and we want that expiration. Okay, this is no further changes. Okay. Oh Lord, forgot we got to do this guy again. This is always just like disaster. So action outputs, ID token decoded, JSON path. Yeah, I wish there was a way to streamline this a little bit better. Maybe there is. It might just be my lack of FlutterFlow knowledge, but let's just copy this. We'll try and make this as fast as possible. Nickname. Let's see here. Paste this guy in. And sub. That should be the last one. Awesome. Action outputs. Yeah, just get the raw body text. It's fine. Let's make sure. This is okay. So if the login result succeeded, true, we go through here. If not, we go through there. Let's go ahead and reload this guy. And we're going to need a logout function because we're going to be able to go to, oh, it's already booting us here. Let me make sure that I got my app settings correct. Yeah, that's correct. Let's go ahead and refresh this guy. Okay. All right, so reloading my page here. So it brings me to my login page. I was checking the settings to make sure that the entry page was the login, the logged in was home page. It was, I just need to reload. So we have our sign in executed. We are on the login page, and we need to go over to this sign up here. So let's actually add some navigation there really quickly. And we can do this by just adding an action here. Let's just navigate to the sign up page. Perfect. Similarly, let's go ahead and just do that for the login page. So it's all set up. Let's add an action. Navigate back to the login page. Awesome. Oops, sorry about that, folks. I was recording something on the, or doing some work on the other computer and had the headset mixed up. What I had done is I just switched around in the authentication settings, made sure that I had the login page and home page selected, and then I went and just added navigation to both the sign up screen and the login screen. So let's go ahead and test the sign up finally. And we'll do Bob55 at echo.email. And we'll go ahead and create this account. Let's see if we get any snack bars. So we got a null error there. So let's go figure out what's going on. Well, let's go to that create action. Another good way to debug this stuff, guys, is to come up here to this little 3 dots icon, more tools, and developer tools. To figure out what's going on, we can actually trace the network calls and do a whole lot of other things here. So let me peel that back, load that up, and let's go ahead and hit that sign up again and see what's going on here. So Bob23.test. let's go ahead and create this account. So let's see, this is the information being passed in the call. So that connection is not being passed. So it does not like that I want to shrink that screen down. So let me blow this up a little bit. So that's the issue there. It's a great way to debug things. So we know it's actually not a problem here. We just need to figure out in our API calls if we can set a default here. So for sign up, we're passing a connection, and I wonder if we can just do, that was that username password authentication, the name of our database that our users reside in Auth0. And let's make sure that our login has the same. Actually, the login won't need that. So we should be, let's reload this and try it again. Being able to debug these errors is probably more important than anything else. Saves you a ton of time. So network, we can see the API calls being thrown over. If we wanted to clear all this crap, then we could hit this little clear button. And then general console, right? We could see anything that Flutter is doing to talk to us. If there's overflow errors, where those might be originating from. So we'll come back into here and we'll do this guy again. Bob 22 email. And let's go ahead and create this. Let's see if that goes through. Okay, so we had successful there, successful sign up. And then the other call that we made was the token call. So we're actually passing this. This is the ROPG Flow Resource Owner Password Grant. So remember, we chained the sign up call and then a login call if that was successful, so that we could forward it along, let FlutterFlow know that our user's authenticated. Pretty great. Okay, let's go design our homepage and throw a logout button in here. And I actually want to take a look at the templates for this. So let's go up here. Let's go to templates. Let's find ourselves a nice app bar. Give that a second to load. So I have some already pre-created. I want to see if I can find one that's already, let's see. I might just go with my pre-created one. It's relatively simple. We're just adding a hamburger menu button there, but I can just bring in this guy. Let's see here. Homepage. So Control F brings up this menu. So let's do an icon button. And let's drag this into this corner piece here. This is called an action. So we have our icon button there, and I want to get rid of these colors. So let's go ahead and clear this out. Let's clear the color. We'll go ahead and make the actual text color. We'll just make it our, oh, I guess that is the primary text. Now, maybe we'll just go white. Just be simple here. Yes, let's just set that there. What else do we need here, guys? We need to add an action to open, this is going to be the end drawer. Drawer, we need to create one first. So let's just go ahead here, do drawer. I want the end drawer. You know what, I'm going to do it from here. Okay, we got our end drawer. Then within that, let's just throw a container. And under that, let's do a column. In this container, we'll just make the width infinite. And can we do infinite height? Yeah, let's do that. That's just giving background color. And because of the safe area, and end drawers are a little wonky, so I'm going to just do something aggressive like 64 here. Okay, great. Now in this column, I'm just going to add, maybe we can get like a list tile. That could be good. And we could just do something like log out. I don't think we need a subtitle. Just get rid of that. And for the icon, let's do the logout icon. And we'll need to define the API call as well. Oh, that's the trailing icon. I want the logout. And let's get rid of that first one that we had, the leading icon. Oops, just exit that. Pretty simple. Okay. On this trailing icon, we need to actually log out. And maybe we'll just do this on the list tile itself. So under actions, let's go ahead and define. We're going to call an API to log out, but I want to actually bind this and make this look a little bit better. Let's change this add button to a menu. And we could just do our menu hamburger button. Perfect. And the action there is going to be for the drawer. So we're just going to open it. Great. List tile. Okay, let's go ahead and define our logout API call. So we'll do logout. And we need to go reference the documentation again. Let's go to the Authentication API. And we'll do the Auth0 logout. So it's just v2/logout. We do the client ID. If it's a federated connection, like they're coming in from an OIDC or a SAML provider or social authentication, we'd want to do federated as well to log them out there if we want to further log them out at the IDP or the identity provider. Okay, so, okay, I'm all over the place. v2 logout. Cool. And we're going to add, and is that a post request? Let's see what that was. I already made that mistake once. Nope, it's a GET request. And we can add the client ID, specific value, string, go back to Auth0 applications, FlutterFlow boats. Perfect. So let's go ahead and add this call. And sweet. So that should invalidate their tokens if we get them to log out, which is what we want. So we'll click here or on the end drawer and edit this. Then our list tile, let's just start an action flow editor. Let's do API call. And we're going to do logout. Logout result. And if it succeeds, we're going to do our custom authentication logout method here. So this is on FlutterFlow's side to kill the session essentially and remove that information about the user, like their tokens and whatnot. And we can add a snack bar saying you're logged out, but it'll be apparent. I will do a snack bar here for logout failed. And we'll make that an error. Perfect. All right. Let's reload this. And because we set that expiry time so far out in the future too, it's keeping us logged in. You notice when I reloaded, I didn't get sent back to the home page, or sorry, the sign up page or the sign in page. And did we not add an on click to this button here? I thought we did. Open drawer on tap. That looks good. Let's see what's going on. Maybe it's because it needs to be like open end drawer or something. Nope, what do you know? Come on. All right, so we got our logout button here. It logged us out. And we should actually be able to see that call too in the network. Oh boy, I should have cleared that before logging out. Let's just try to sign that same user back in. Make sure that our login function is working. Great, it is. Okay, so we got that token there. Let's clear this and let's log out. Cool. Excellent. So looking great. Now let's just add a little bit of flair to this guy. Maybe we'll call this the Auth0 demo. And let's pull in some of that user's information now. So I want the app bar up here. Let's collapse that guy down. There we go. I like to keep things organized that way. It's totally preference. So I'm going to actually right click on this. I'm going to wrap this widget with the container. And I'm going to make this infinite width. That way we can give everything the same background. So the fill color will just be whatever the primary background is. Great. And then in this column, we're going to do a couple of things. We'll get a text widget, and we can start pulling that information from the authenticated user, right? Like their email. Can add another one. This will be that authenticated user, whether or not their email is verified. Let's do a circle image here. And let's choose the path to be that authenticated user, their picture. Great. Let's add another one. Authenticated user. We can get that sub value. We'll leave the nickname and name out of there because we didn't do that. You can pass additional user data fields in the signup flow, but I didn't do that. So it'll just be like their email address for their nickname and their regular name. Okay, so this will be user ID. Great, let's go ahead and reload this. Okay, go and sign this person in. Boom, we got Bob Test. We're getting hello world there. Let's see what's going on with that. Maybe that just needs to be reloaded. Or maybe I didn't set it explicitly when I did the ID token decoding. Either way, I know how we can change it. Nope, we got it. Excellent. So for the rest of this now, we can create a form. And let's go ahead and do that right now. So we can say form. Form validation. And we're going to want a text field. And actually, before I go down this path, let's get rid of that. Let's do a little bit, something a little bit more fun. Let's get the list view out. And then under this list view, I'm going to add a child, and let's go take a look at the templates. I want something, maybe I need to type something in, list. Got some list tiles here. Let's see. Which one do we like? I like, is there item or card? We're gonna go off the beaten path a little bit, just find something that we like. Let's go back to that list. Apologies, guys. I want to find, something that I've been using before. This is where I want to list my boats. So I'm trying to find one that would be good for this. That you don't have to build from scratch. It would be that hard to build it from scratch, to be honest, but it's easier to pull from something else. Maybe I get something like this. Okay. And let's just like get rid of a bunch of stuff. So boats on the market. And let's see here. This is going to be an individual item. So actually I probably just want to just figure out what I want here. So we're going to have a boat price. We're going to have a boat name. Let's think about this for a second. Let's do list view. So we need to define some API calls for our boats here. And we need to define a boat object. So sorry for me spinning my wheels here. I'm just trying to think about what will be the easiest path forward. Let's go to our data types and let's just create a boat object. Maybe we just call that boat. I'll give it an ID. Give this a name. We'll give this an owner. Give it a length, the length of the boat. Whether or not it's for sale. Maybe make that a Boolean. And a price. Let's make that a double. Okay. So I've set up a little API that I'll put this on the description so that you can go ahead and remix this and hook it up to your own database. And I'm going to go over the pieces of what's going on here as well. So this is using Auth0 to secure the API endpoints. So when we think about authorization, what you have access to, you can access certain things when you're authenticated, but you might want to take it a layer further to what permissions does that person have? Remember that API, we set the permissions for reading and writing boats. Maybe we want to bring that into here. So this is actually running on this pycrocus.glitchme. And let's just bring that over here. Come back to our projects, and we'll go ahead and define a new API group. And we'll just call this boats. And the base URL is going to be that. .glitch.me. Perfect. And we'll add this group. And let's start making some calls. So the first one I want to do is maybe just, we want to create a boat, and we also want to get all the boats. So let's do a get all boats. And we can do just /boats. There's no query parameters. I don't need to add, I do need to add a header if I want to make this an authenticated request. So we could do, we do want that content type. And do application/JSON. We can add another one for authorization. So when you want to make a request to an endpoint of your API that requires authentication, this is where we will need to pass a bearer token. In this case, it's going to be that access token from Auth0 or from our application that we're going to pass to it. And you can put this in brackets here, and under our variables, we can go ahead and define that auth token. And we'll just say this is going to be a string, and that should be able to pull into there. Perfect. So we can test the response here. That might take a second. We're seeing the error here as well. So it's unauthorized. I have this API set up for the other application I was running. So when I make this available, what I'm going to actually do is allow you to remix this. So let me go ahead and just click remix. Okay, now we got a different endpoint here, and we're going to just change a few values. So let's cover this API piece right now. Let's talk about some of the pieces that are in here. Maybe I can do a blow this up a little bit. So we're going to bring in Firebase admin. Okay, in order for this to work, for our API to be able to talk to Firebase, we need to create a service account. The second piece here, this express OAuth2 job bearer, this is an express API. This is an NPM module that allows you to pull in auth and required scopes that I'll explain as we get further down. The other piece, I brought in a service account. So this is where we need to go into Firebase to retrieve that. So let's go to our Firebase console. And we're going to see our Auth0 demo, which is the new one that we created. We haven't done anything in here yet, guys. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to users and permissions. And under the service accounts is where I'm going to create a service account. So it allows my API to talk to this database, regardless if there's rules set up on the database or not. So when we think about Firestore database, you can set up security rules so that only authenticated users can access the information from there. But if we want to conduct all the logic on our server, we can just set those all to no reading or writing, and this admin service account can override that. And there's some initial setup information here, but I'm going to go ahead and generate a key. Okay, now that's being loaded. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and that's going to open up in Visual Studio Code right here. So I have mine set to, and I'm copying that information. Now for my service account, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to that. I just went and pasted it in this service account.json file. For my .env file, this is where I can bring in different secrets. So as you see, once I remixed it, these were scrubbed. The service account file is not in here, so it did not. It's probably better practice to do that. So we need the domain, and we're going to pull that information from our API auth call, so we already had that. Okay, and then the audience, which in my case was http://boats, and you can get that audience again from your API, my boats API that I created, and the identifier there, that's the audience. Okay, excellent. Now, if we want to make one of these requests to here, we got to change a little bit of information here. So under my boats, I need to pass this auth token, and we need to change the URL because I already changed the other ones. This one's hulking little pen. Let's go ahead and save that. Go to the get all boats. Let's go ahead and test the response. So we should get a failure here, 401. Unauthorized is what that means. We didn't provide a bearer token to be able to access this. Now within our API, server.js, we can actually come to our get all boats endpoint and remove this jot check. Now, this should go ahead and reload and the app is listening now. You can also test this in here, and we're going to get an empty array because there are no boats. We have not created any boats. And if I test this API call, we get a success. I'm going to go ahead and put the jot check back in. And what that jot check is it's checking the audience and domain that we put into the .env file. And we have the service account set up so that Firebase admin can go ahead and perform actions like reading and writing to our database. We can go ahead and do a login call here. Maybe we just do that Bob test. Let's get an access token back. Let's copy that. If we come over to our get all boats, we can include this value. And we go ahead and test out the API call with the jot check in there. And we got a success, and there's an empty array because there are no boats. So let's add a call to get boats. We'll call this create boats. And it's just going to be boats. And it's going to be very similar. It's going to be that content type, application /JSON. And for this, we're going to want authorization. And we're going to do bearer because it's being passed as a bearer token. And it's going to be an auth token. And under our variables, we do auth token. This will be a string. And we'll leave that as is for right now. For the body, okay, so this is where we can input that information in. When we go to create a boat, we're going to need other variables, right? Remember that boat object that we created before? I'm going to list them out here. So the boat's going to have a name. It'll have an ID, but that ID is going to be auto-generated by Firebase, so I'm not going to pass that. Price, which is going to be a double. What else did we have? There's going to be an owner, but we're not going to pass that. We're going to retrieve that dynamically from the token that's being passed to the API. So we have a length, and we have an owner. Oh, no, we don't need that owner. What else do we have? For sale. Cool. So add this call. We should have our auth token still. So we're going to need that. And let's just call this test boat. Price is $150. And the length is 12 feet. And it is for sale. we don't have an owner. I want to make, while we're doing some testing here, this is going to be the app.post. Let's remove this jot check. Actually, no, let's leave it in. We got the authentication token set into here, so it should work fine. And let's go ahead and test this API call. And we're getting invalid input data. Okay, so what else are we looking for? Name, length, for sale, and price. Okay. Name, length, for sale, price. Oh, big dummy. We set up the variables, but not the body. So this is where we need to actually like pull that information in. So let's go ahead and drag that in there. We're gonna need length. We're gonna need for sale. Okay, let's save that. Format it. Response and test. Okay. Hey, we got a boat. So we'll see that owner was picked up as the user that was logged in. When we tested the login API call here and got the response back, I used that token. And within this function, we can check the request.auth.payload.sub. That auth is coming from the express bearer package. So we can just extract that information out of there and create a boat object. So when we go into our Firestore database now, we'll see the boats have been, they're starting to be created. And just for example's sake, I want to create one more. And let's go to the response and test. And let's just change this around to botos. I'll make this 3,099. The length is 400 feet. It's a huge boat. It's not for sale. No one can have it. Okay. Let's test this API call. Great. So information's all coming through. Now we just need to hook it up to our actual project. And for this list view, I'm going to generate these children dynamically. So we're going to make a backend query on the list view. And this query is going to be that API call from boats. We want to get all the boats. We can set the additional variables like that auth token because we can't read the boats if we're not authenticated. And we can go to that authenticated user, grab the authentication token, and just confirm that. Great. Then from the children element here, we can go to that get all boats response. And I think we can just leave it as is, honestly, because it returns an array. Current variable is not valid. No further changes. And this will be boats, or just a boat item. So perfect. Now we need to just scope this thing down a little bit because it's a little bit unruly right now. So here, let's just make this the boat item. And if we look at JSON path, I want to define some. So let's go ahead and we can make this a lot easier on ourselves. Let's go to boats, get all boats. Let's try that test response again. Great. Now down here, we can parse this as a data type. We created boat, the boat object. And we could also bring in just the fields if we need some of this. If we parse it as a boat type, this just makes it a lot easier. And it is a list. It is a list of boats. Don't forget that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save that. And we'll come up to here. It's going to be the boat item. Then we need to data type boat, and this is going to be a field, and it's the name. Awesome. Boat name was a default variable. Cool. Okay, let's copy this variable. So we're going to use similar stuff here. So for this boat item, we're going to paste this, and this is going to be the price. And let's give that a number formatting. Decimal. Period for decimal. It's displayed as a currency, and do $. And this is going to be the boat price. Awesome. We don't need this. We don't need this. Honestly, we can move this above. Just get rid of the list view because we're not having a list view in there. Oh man, that made this thing look like crap. Let's do Control Z. And just figure out how to keep this a little bit intact here. So if I move that, okay. For this, what else do we have? We can do, oh crap, did I get rid of the, that's a problem. I got rid of the main list view. Oh my gosh, that's a mistake. Okay, sorry, just resetting here. Does not want us to expand that out. Could we give it a width of infinite? Let's get rid of, this is the list view I was trying to get rid of, apologies. Okay. And we can do some fun stuff here. So this might be, we're not going to need a column here. So we'll get rid of this guy. We also want to just remove that column, expand this out, center it up. Now let's do a left align. We can give a little bit of padding too if we want to. We don't need uniform padding. We'll just give this like a 4. And we'll change the name of this to be the boat item, data type, boat. And we're going to make this the owner. Awesome. Here, let's go ahead and replace that with a checkbox. This checkbox is going to be whether or not the boat's for sale. I think that's the easiest way to do this. So let's do boat item, data type, boat, for sale. And I don't really want them to be able to click this, so I want to disable this checkbox. So we're going to have to perform a condition here. And we'll just do a single condition. So like if this is true, this disables the checkbox. So let's go ahead and just say index in the list is equal to index in the list. So it's just always true. I don't want them to be able to check that or anything. Yeah, we should probably like indicate that this is for sale too. So maybe we just wrap this with like a column and then collapse that. Let's add a text. Just bring this up. Say like for sale. Maybe like line that center. Should be some like spacing. So if we go to the column, there's item spacing. This is always a good place to space things out. Does that look like crap? Yeah, it does. Container. Let's try and put that spacing back. Yeah, that'll be better. Okay, and then here maybe we do like the length of the boat or something. Data structure field, length. Yeah, that's good. Boat length. And let's just like copy this. I want to copy that variable because I want to like put let's just change this to like a combined text. So I copied that because I'm just going to put something in front of it. So if I say this boat is, then this will be what I'm going to paste here. That boat length, maybe like feet long. Let's do FT. Okay. I'm going to start a new session there. Close that other one. We should be in decent shape here. We will add the capability for creating new boats from here too. That'll be the next step. But then we'll probably wrap it from there. But I'll make it all available. The couple of API endpoints. I did make an API endpoint for getting a single boat as well. So in this case, if we want to get a boat by their ID, we could create another route to punch in the ID to grab it. And that would be useful in a case where the list of boats is being displayed there, their ID is present. I can click on the card that holds the boat information, then we can go to like a boat detail page. But I really am displaying all the information about the boat right here. So if we wanted a more truncated, like just the list or the name of the boat and the price, and then we want to drill into it and see more information, we could do that as well. Just create another page for it. So it's loading. So now we got our two boats there. So awesome. Lastly, let's create a form. So under that text, collapse this guy down. Let's create a form. Perfect. And in here, we're going to have a text field. And I want to actually like give this form, let's wrap it with a, let's do a container. And just give it some like uniform padding of like 8. That'll be good. Shoot, maybe we even wrap this with a card. It'll just look nicer. So you're gonna have a couple of text fields here. Let's name this first one like the boat name. and change the label. I want to do outline. I like the outline border decoration the best. Cool. That should be good. We'll add, let's add a row under that. That didn't do what I wanted it to do. We need to like wrap this in a column. I thought the form was like a column. I thought it had multiple children, but it doesn't. So we'll do a column here. We got boat name. We'll add a row widget to where we have a, let's do a checkbox inside of that. And let's also do another text field. And this is going to be a, how come this one is, okay, this text field, it's going to be a similar, and I'm actually going to just duplicate that boat name one and bring that into here. That's just cleaner. I don't have to redo the work there. No, so maybe this is boat price. We're going to have to set down here the keyboard type. So the price is going to be a decimal. So number with a decimal. That's perfect. And our checkbox. Shoot, I'm going to apply some item spacing here as well. Maybe give like 8. Let's apply 8 to the front too and 8 to the end. This row needs some padding, so we can bring it in line with the other stuff here. And in front of that checkbox, let's get a text that just says for sale. Unfortunately, we're going to want to wrap that with a row as well. Wrap this with a row. Let's bring the checkbox up here. And then in this row right here with these two coupled, we can wrap it. The reason I want to do that is because we can wrap it with a, we can do a card similar to how the other ones are laid out. And we want the row here to have some padding, so probably uniform padding, honestly. So we can get on par with the boat price here. Oh, that actually came out much better than I thought it would. Awesome. Cool, so we got the boat price, boat name. Yeah, it is a card, so it's a little bit elevated, but I guess we can bring that down to like a 1. Or I could just make it a container and have the, yeah, let's see if we can do a replace. I've had bad luck with the replace widget. So let's just wrap this with a container. And then let's remove the card. And the container is where we can apply the border. Let's see here. I know I'm just missing it. Border width 2. Border radius, all the other ones are 8. Now we got to change that color. I think it's just like secondary background. Nope, it's gonna be maybe primary background or just like a gray. It's too dark. I'm not going to spin my wheels on it too much. Honestly, we just make all the border colors primary. Awesome. Okay, what are we missing here? Boat price. We need boat length. So honestly, we could duplicate one into here. We could have it in the same row. I don't know if I'd want that. We can bring it up here with the boat name. Let's try and get that in the boat name. Why is it bringing that container over? Yeah, so we'll call this under the label information. Let's see here. Where's the length? Maybe boat length. Awesome. Okay, let's name these appropriately because we're gonna want it for the API call. So boat length. This checkbox is for sale, and this guy is, we'll just call it boat price. I think that's all the info that we needed. Okay. Awesome. Within the column here, let's add a child and let's do a button. And then we'll just call this create boat. We'll just create. Let's duplicate that button. Wrap this in a row. And we'll just do like one of these. We could center align them. And a spacing. Maybe this one's going to be cancel. And let's make the fill color maybe like secondary. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Lastly, let's add a button. We're going to have to bring this way up. And then we'll just give this like 12 padding on the top. Let's call it create boat. And so this is where we can use a little bit of page state here so that when we click this, we'll show the form. And I want to add one more text, just say like create boat form. And this is going to be a weight of semi-bold. Let's do like 28. Yeah, pretty straightforward. So when we go to click home page here, This is where we can do our state management, so for local variables, and let's just call this show form. And this will be a Boolean, and it'll be set to true or false to start. Oh, it's set to false. And then the create boat is conditionally shown depending on that. So the single condition will be not page parameters, page state, show form is equal to false. So we'll show this if it's false. I think there's actually an easier way to do that. Let me delete that. And you could probably just do page state, show form. And in here, you can click on it again and apply the opposite statement. So if it's false, essentially, then show it. Awesome. Same thing with this. We're going to do the exact same thing. Page state, show form. We'll click this, and if show form's true, then we show this. And when we hit our cancel button, we want to do state management, update page state. Oh, not page, sorry. State management. Update, yeah, it is update page. Oh, yeah. And then you got to click show form. And we're canceling, so show form is going to be set to false. You could also toggle it, but I like being a little bit more explicit with these things just to know exactly what's going on. And we're going to have a similar thing here, but we're going to make an API call first. Okay. Let's go ahead and just see what we've got going so far. And I'll pause it and wait for this to load really quickly. Okay, so we're loaded. I'm going to hit create boat. That's not expanding our form there. I'm going to actually add 12 padding here because it looked ugly. So when we hit create boat, we're going to go ahead and add an action to update the page state. Show form to toggle value to true. Nope. Great. And guys, we're going to get to when we make this request, if we're unauthorized, if our access token's expired, reaching out for a new one, getting a refresh token, or using the refresh token to get a new access token. That's going to be the next piece when we make this API call. Okay, I know this should have shown. Let's try this one more time. There it is. So we got our create boat form. We can cancel. This is looking good. Now we just need to hook up the API call to the actual create button. So let's open this guy. Let's start off with an API call. Perfect. And let's just call this API create boat result. Okay, we're going to need to pass the auth token for the user that's currently logged in. We're going to pass the name. Oops. This is going to be widget state now. So boat name, price, widget state is going to be boat price, length, widget state, boat length, for sale, widget state is going to be that checkbox, the for sale value. Awesome. Okay. If this succeeded, let's just add a show snack bar. Let's say boat created. If it failed, I'm going to just show a snack bar for right now. but we're going to do some more advanced stuff in a second. And that's going to be doing the refresh token in case we're expired. All right. Great boat. And the beauty of this too, guys, that we can go to that more tools, developer tools, and just check out the network here. So let's go ahead and give it a name. Now, one thing to note that I'm not going to cover here is that you need to do some client-side validation. We created that form, and we can make sure that these fields aren't empty before it's sent. So why don't we just say like first demo boat, length is 42 feet. It's got a price of 595 cents, and it is for sale. Let's go create. So boat created, we got an overflow error, so we can fix that. But the boat was created, and we got our first demo boat there. We see that user ID, that Auth0, big long nasty thing, and we can format that better too. So let's actually let's create some like spacing here or something. This is just like gross. Okay, let's fix the overflow issue. So maybe in the list view, let's actually do it in the just make this column scrollable. Great. So oh, not great. Maybe it didn't take. Let's give it a second. Feel like we should be okay with that. Yeah, there we go. So we can scroll up and down. Get the demo boat. Perfect. We did add some space in there, so it's not absolutely hideous. Doesn't look that great, but honestly, like putting headers here, like for sale, owner, and price would be the move. I'm not going to do that today, just for the sake of time. We're already like far too over on this. In the form itself, like I said, you can put automatic validate on this. Validates on every character rather than on each action. So you can toggle these things on, just make them required fields. Make sure that if a user tries to go and just punch in a bunch of nothing, we're okay. We should also have validation on our API side as well, our server side validation. So I'll get all that field is required right there. Okay. Let's handle the last piece, refresh token. So we're going to need another call under the auth and refresh token. And let's go to that authentication API. And where is that guy? Refresh token. So it's going to be a post to the OAuth token endpoint. The grant type is going to be different though. It's going to be refresh token, and we're going to pass the refresh token. Okay. So under the APIs, we're going to need post. And let's pull that over here again. Is that right? Refresh token. So they want the content type like this again. Let's go ahead and add that header. In the body, we're going to do that form encoded, and the parameters are going to be grant type, and that's a specific value. That's going to be refresh token. We're going to get the client ID, which we're going to pull from our application. And you don't need the client secret. We do need the refresh token itself, though, and that's from a variable. Okay, let's go make sure that we have that. It's going to be a string. Okay. And let's add this call. Oh, this is the OAuth token endpoint again, but it's different grant type. Client ID is not set. Oh boy. Okay, so test this out. We do our login endpoint. Let's do the test call again. Let's get a refresh token from there. It's kind of a pain in the ass grabbing this. Okay, I think that's just one string, so you should be able to. Oh, that was way easier. And the response. We test this API call, and we'll get our information back again. We'll refresh that token, be able to update the user's profile information. So when we receive this, we're going to go through the same steps. We're going to decode the ID token. So if there were updates on the users, like their roles or permissions were changed throughout this process, then we'll have that information here. So let's go back into this create button, and now we need to check on this false condition. Let's go ahead and add an action here. Let's check the what do we need here? Just a condition. I need to do a conditional action. Just check if the create boat result, spelled that wrong. Maybe we need to do an actual condition. Action outputs, the create boat result, API response options, the status code is equal to a 401. That means they're unauthorized, their token was expired or invalid. So if it's invalid, let's expand this guy out a little bit. Then we want to add a action to do another API call. And in this case, we're going to do the refresh token. And we're going to set the refresh token to our currently authenticated users refresh token. And this is the refresh token result. Great. And if that succeeded, there's one last step, and this is updating it on FlutterFlow's side. So we're going to update that authenticated user. Again, If we want to update things that were changed on like their ID token or their access token, we could use that function, the custom function that we wrote before, to decode the JOT. I'm gonna leave this alone. Really all we need to do is update the authentication token here. The rest of the information is going to be the same unless you want to bump up the expiry time again. Totally up to you. So these are optional parameters here. So this is going to be action outputs, the refresh token result, and I should have, to make it easier, gone into the APIs under that auth, that refresh token. Hopefully it saved it there. Okay, good. I'm going to test this again real quick. I should save these as JSON paths. It makes it way easier to use. Cool. Let's go back. Update this authenticated user. The action outputs from the refresh token result, JSON body, predefined path that we just defined, or I guess JSON path. Maybe it didn't pull through yet. Hold on. I will have it my way. Update authenticated user. This is the refresh token result. Okay, it's not giving it to me, so we can just do it this way. Should be like that, this access token. Perfect. And we can show snack bar if we want over here. That's totally fine. We can also do a check to say add another conditional action, the single condition. If the action output of the create boat result status code was equal to a 403 forbidden, then we could say something like show snack bar, you don't have permissions. Cool. And that should be red. Awesome. So that should be everything that we need. So go create a boat, tester boat. Let's put that form validation on. It's probably not the best choice. 123 feet. 1009. It's not for sale. And we can see that information got posted there. Let's do one last thing to show the permissions that we can add here. So if I want to do something like a write boats check, I can add this to my route to create the boat. So all I would do is just paste that into here. And we can enforce that permission. And I'll show how we can get that permission as well. So this should be updated. Yep, I don't have permissions. And what we can do to get those permissions, and this is probably the last thing that I'll cover today, is we can go to our user management, users. Oh shoot, who are we? Who are we logged in as? We're logged in as Bob22. Go back to our users. We can create a role. Maybe I just create one called boats admin. Read and write boats. And for these permissions, we can pick the API, so that boats API that we created, and give him both these permissions. So anyone with this role has these permissions. They're going to get automatically appended to the access token. So if I want to add a user, I could say Bob22, and we'll go ahead and assign him that. And that should work for us. We can also do a refresh on the forbidden as well, but I don't really want to bomb that endpoint. So maybe I'll just like log out and log back in. That should be sufficient enough, to be honest. So we'll sign in here, create boat. We have the right boats check, so permission boat. Let's say 23. I didn't put validation on that to make this a number too. And we'll just say 1299. Don't have permission still. That's interesting. Read boats, write boats. Make sure that I have the appropriate audience set. Okay, so I was able to figure out, I'll create another one of these test permission boats. So we have a second one down there. In my API route, I had something defined wrong. There's a claim includes here, and we could define that permissions and then write boats permission. So as I gave the user the ability to, I gave him the role, so it should have the read and write boats permissions. And in our JSON web token, I decoded it, and it should show up as a permissions array, just like this. So wrong for me. I meant to do the claim includes, not the required scopes. So this claim includes from the express Auth0 job bearer package, and then we can just define them here and drop it directly on our route. So they need that permission in order to do it. So no one can make any backend calls to a resource, even if they're authenticated, if they don't have that permission. To go into a little bit of detail of where that lays is under that authentication, or sorry, applications, APIs. Look at the boats API, making sure that we have RBAC enabled and add permissions to the access token. And then under our user management, we can create that role, as I mentioned before, the boats admin that has the permissions tied to it. And we can assign users from here or directly in our user pool if I wanted to assign permissions or a role. I could do that directly here. Sweet. So that should be everything that you need to know for using password authentication with Auth0. It's a little bit more difficult for if you want to do authorization code flow with PKCE. I couldn't get a redirect URI back to this emulator. So to do a pop-up window, I'd probably have to pull it down in a local emulator and do your own code. I could not find any documentation for providing redirect URIs to this. I tried to follow their sign-in with Google implementation with Firebase, but I couldn't deconstruct it on the back end. It's too much of a black box. But I hope this is helpful, and thanks for your time.